Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 15th of September 2020, and you are listening to the pilot episode of the TASL Fantasy Football Chat. My name is Phil Hawkins. I'm here with my co-host, Rob Pickles, and this episode is called The Mo Salah Complex. So, Rob, how we doing? You all good?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Yeah.
This is quite a new and exciting thing we're trying here.
Yeah, it's a little bit unusual. Never done anything like this before, so it's definitely going to be a learning curve.
I mean, the idea we had for this is that, as lots of people are in all over the world, I suppose, they're part of some kind of fantasy football game, website, different formats, we know. And, you know, it adds a bit to it, doesn't it? I mean, you're sitting there and you're waiting for Fulham versus Crystal Palace results to come in to see if your defender got off the bench or not, kind of thing.
It's definitely added something to the Saturday. You're looking at games that you wouldn't have even considered before, and all of a sudden you're kind of engrossed in your phone looking at, like you said, Fulham versus Palace or some ridiculous kind of.
I mean, would you say
you wouldn't have thought about before?
No, exactly. Would you say it's enhanced your viewing, or do you think it just causes more pain?
It's a double-edged sword, really, because when it's going well, it's fantastic. You feel when it's going terribly, you just question everything. I think whether you just want to give up supporting anyone or give up life completely. Yeah.
I often say to my wife, as you know, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I often say to her, being an Arsenal fan is a blessing and a curse. I wish I couldn't support them as much as I did, but I do, and so I'm invested. It's emotional, and I get to that point with my fantasy football team as well, where I'm looking there, and if Harry Kane goes off injured after 31 minutes, even though he's a Spurs player, it's very conflicting.
It is. It's really conflicted. I mean, I've got players in there that, like last year, coming off the back of last year, you obviously had Man United and resurgence through the midfield. You had Bruno Fernandes, you had Martial, you had Rashford, Greenwood. It was painful, but I think it was offset by the fact, I'm a Liverpool fan, so it was offset by the fact we'd just won we'd won the Premier League, so it was more palatable.
Now look, how many minutes is that into the very first episode? You had to drop that one in there.
It's been 30 years, Phil. I think I'm due that
one. No, fair enough. I'll let you have that one. I'm definitely not going to keep account, though. I definitely am going to keep account of how many times you say it. But yeah. So I mean, right. So what's the idea of this? Obviously, there are other podcasts out there from people who are probably a lot more famous than us, a lot better looking than us, and know a lot more about football than us, that are a lot better at fantasy football than us, but we're still going to give it a go anyway. I mean, I would advise anybody listening to this, if you're coming here to get fantasy football advice and expecting to turn your bad time around, this is probably not the place for you.
No, far from it, I'm afraid.
I mean, I feel like I'm a bit of the Arsene Wenger of the FPL world, where I used to have a bit about me, but now.
But when you won it the other year.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd like to point out, Rob very kindly there is saying, about my past victories. It wasn't in the overall game or anything. It was only in our mini league. I feel like, I used to be in a position where I feel like I could have given advice and I could have passed on my knowledge. But now my performances in the last 2 seasons have been so poor. And I mean, we'll talk about game week 1 in a minute, where it's like, well, yeah, don't come here for advice. So, I mean, if this does get legs and people start listening to this, please don't complain in the comments saying you guys are rubbish, because we know.
It is more from it's like talking about football, anyway, whether it be FPL or just Premier League, just generally. It's we always do it, and I just thought it'd be good to discuss it like this.
Bit of a laugh, isn't it? Bit of a laugh, Cool, right. So I mean, first question, Rob, and I mean, very important when you're doing your fantasy football team. Did you do your kit?
No.
Rob, the most important thing. I can't believe you didn't take this opportunity to create the most. So you got that lovely grey default kit.
I've been playing it 3 years. I never even noticed. Hang on a minute. Let me go and have a look. Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, I didn't notice. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Most important thing, Rob. I mean, this is what the people want to hear. what colour kit you're going for.
No,
But I mean,
yeah, there it is. Design your kit. I've just noticed that.
going for
3
that.
years
Then
playing this, I've never
3 years.
noticed.
I know, perfect. I mean, so obviously game week 1 is just finished. We've had almost a full round of fixtures. Obviously, we've had the Manchester clubs, Burnley and Villa haven't played a game yet. But I mean, from your team, what have we learned in this first game week, Rob? How did you get on?
It's funny because over the summer you obviously start to pick your team and you watch all the experts on YouTube, and there are a lot of them who finish in like the top 10,000 and the top 7,000. And then you notice they all kind of pick the same players as they've obviously been looking at the stats. And so I went through a few of them and I ended up picking pretty standard for, I think, the rest of you. Mitrovic seems to come up a lot. And I was pleased last year when Mitrovic wasn't in the league, because every time I felt obliged to pick him because he was good value. He wouldn't do anything. And the week after I took him out, he'd always score. So
That's
I was
always
pleased.
Your big thing, isn't it,
It
Rob?
is,
you like convinced that you are the curse of all players. That as soon as you take them out, that is their time to shine.
So there's a few players that I just used to dread having a run of form, because I knew as soon as I picked them, that was it. And I got them on the wrong point. You know, you've got to try and get them on the way up. Yeah. So the other one was Eden Hazard. Every time I'd pick Hazard into the team, it was just, well, it was game over. He wouldn't do anything. And Son, which is, I picked him again. He had such a good end to last season. I stuck him in my team this time round.
Decent pre-season as well.
Yeah, decent pre-season. He had his first game against Everton, and it didn't go particularly well. Yeah,
I mean, none of those Spurs players came out of that well.
No, and I thought I was being clever in sticking Dyer in, and that again backfired. So
yeah, for you and Jose.
Yeah, and I almost put Kane in as well. I was going to go for a centre.
Oh,
wow. And I've been taken in, you see, Phil. I've been taken in because I've been watching Amazon's
the All or Nothing.
Yeah, All or Nothing with Tottenham. I was thinking, oh yeah, he's got them firing, he's getting them going, and he's had injury problems, and they're going to start this season really well. They're going to be solid. He's had a full pre-season to work with them. He's going to get them playing his Jose Pulis kind of way, and no, it didn't work, did it?
No, I think a few players may have been pulled in by the All or Nothing documentary, to be honest, and I think the documentary, as entertaining as it was to watch, I think the actual what's been said and what's been going on may turn out to be absolute utter nonsense and nothing like what it's actually like. I mean, it just doesn't feel right. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, you were drawing it, and I mean, Jose's come out since that documentary has finished saying he's glad the cameras are off now, and all that says to me now is that he can say what he really wants to.
Yeah, and of course, it's like anything you observe, you change, and I think that from the observation, I don't think they were really getting a hint of it. And even now, with all of the money that's been spent on the team, or the money spent on the facilities, and all of the analysis, they never really go into what analysis went on. They never really go into detail. It's kept very kind of shallow in that respect. I was expecting to see a little bit more in terms of the tactics discussed, but I suppose that's not something they want to share.
I mean, they probably have to be careful, don't they? Because that's almost like their
inside secrets,
their trade USP secrets kind of thing, I suppose. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so what did you end up scoring game week 1, Rob?
So
where did your points come from? 76, and I wonder where your points came from, Robert Pickles. I wonder 20. Where they came from.
So yeah, you see, I thought I was going to be stuck on about 58, and the reason, so Salah got 20 because I put him as vice captain, and I put Aubameyang as captain because they were playing. They were playing Fulham in the first game, and I thought if anyone's going to bag a few, it's going to be Aubameyang against them. And then spread out actually, because I last minute change, I pulled Willian out of the team and decided to spread his money a little bit further. And I picked up Harrison from Leeds, and I looked at his stats. That's one or two times I look at the stats from last season. Now, although
and he's had an interesting journey, Jack Harrison, hasn't he?
He is. Yeah, he's
been over in
the
States, and you know that's a hell of a pick you've done there. I mean, I don't think I can't remember what his pick percentage is off the top of my head, but I can't imagine many many fans have picked him up.
Well, I watched a couple of videos, not too much, just just a couple of videos from last season, and you could see the way he cuts in, and he's quite direct, and he's got a good finish on him. And I just think that he was an option. He was maybe at the beginning of the season. He's a bit of an option. Whether I think the next game they may have. I think is it Fulham. They've got. Let me just have a quick look. The next game week. I just thought that he might generate a few points for the money. You know, it's pound for pound. I thought he'd be a decent pick.
Well, I mean, and it came off. And I mean, you had the confidence to put him against your own team's defence, who I'd want to, I mean, and these guys.
That was a conflicting moment.
Absolutely, and I mean, Liverpool. I mean, regardless of whether you support Liverpool or not, there are not going to be many teams in the game that haven't picked up at least one of those Liverpool defenders. I mean, I'm sitting here with Robertson and Trent in my team. Yeah. Because I just feel like for the prices there are at, you're not going to get any midfielders or strikers at a better value. And I mean, the problem is when you have two players on the same team is that when they ship 3 goals, you're not going to get a great
You're
return.
Really opening yourself up, aren't you?
I mean, I really opened myself up when I decided to captain Trent, thinking that I was being a clever so-and-so. But, these things sometimes don't come off. And unfortunately for me, as a result, I've had a very woeful final points tally of 39 in the first week. I look at my squad still now, and I'm not massively worried, to the point where if I can get away with it, I'm hoping not to make any changes for game week 2. I mean, I'm sitting there with McCarthy in goal as kind of my pick and sit guy, and he's going to be there for now. But 4.5 mil goalkeeper, get him in there. I've got Nyland on the bench, the Villa keeper. Obviously, they've got Emi Martinez coming in now, so I mean, he's not going to play. But I mean, McCarthy, that having that option there, it gives me the extra 500,000 to have somewhere else by putting that 4 million keeper there. I've got Trent and Robertson.
Oh, I tell you what, you were lucky with Walker Peters. I thought he was off.
Your week
would have gone bad from bad to worse.
It could have done, And I mean, in the end, they were lucky. That Crystal Palace didn't end up scoring more against them either, because they had a couple of close breaks where Zaha could have got on the score sheet even more. So. And I still think, I mean, I had Vardy up front. I mean, I've got a front three of Vardy, Kane, and Mitrovic, and obviously Mitrovic didn't start, and Kane, I guess, didn't start either. No, but it was. I've got Kane and Son in the team. I
didn't realise Kane didn't start. I didn't realise that.
No, he did start. No. I was just being facetious.
Oh right, okay. Yeah. This is why we're not experts.
No, this is why we are not the pros. But I mean, ultimately, what has cost me is not having Salah in the team. And again, it's one of those ones where he was in every single one of my drafts leading up to the season. And then I've thought, can I get away with not having? So my thinking was this, right? The first 3 game weeks for Liverpool, I think, were Leeds, then it's Chelsea, then it's Arsenal. I thought, can I get away with not having one of those guys for the first 3 weeks? Especially when we know that we're perhaps going to be looking to bring in Man City players, Man United players after game week 2 or even game week 1. And it would appear that it has kind of done me, because I mean, the thing that surprises me massively is that only 36% of the game actually had Mohamed Salah.
Really?
Yeah. And
is it for the reasons we've talked about, do you think?
It's possible. Well, I mean, look, we have called our very first pilot episode. We have honoured
Mo Salah
the little Egyptian here. I mean, you and I have discussed this offline extensively as well with all our mates, and I get quite passionate about this because if you look at Mohamed Salah's numbers in the Premier League for Liverpool, it is unreal. I mean, they're kind of at Ronaldo and Messi levels in terms of goals, like the score ratio and the goal contribution is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
My big problem is, Rob, I watch a lot of football, and every time I see him play, I just don't think he looks very good.
Yeah.
I think I could watch maybe
and
one or two games in a season and think, wow, he's had a great game.
Very quiet for a lot of games.
He just pops up and scores all the time.
And I've said that even though I'm a Liverpool fan and I think it's great and he's done wonders, I just see where you're coming from. And there's elements. So, and I think this is why. So I started looking at the form for the preseason. I think we had a quick chat about this before. Before we actually started this, and I had a quick look at the form of how they were getting on in pre-season, and Salah was terrible, and I was minutes away from putting Mane in, thinking first game of the season, to play it safe. Salah's, he's on the downward spiral.
I mean, Mane traditionally in past seasons has always had a very good opener as well. I remember he scored. I'm sure he scored in the opening fixture for the last couple of seasons on the bounce. But
yeah, definitely. And I resisted. I resisted my urges to remove him, and I was lucky it paid off. And I think you were saying just before we started this, my comment on the group chat was, how many of you have removed Salah because of his jokingly not realising you had actually removed him? Because I thought to myself, I can't be the only one, and for the same reasons as you. Every time you doubt him, he just pops up with 3 goals. And like you said, the 3 goals he scored, 2 were penalties. I didn't see the third one. So I don't know what.
I mean, it was an absolute. Like. I mean, I think it was his second goal was just an absolute screamer of a left-footed volley, kind of picking up the scraps from a free kick. And I mean, he's hit the near post top corner, and if he meant to hit it exactly there. Which, I mean, these guys are professional footballers, world-class professional footballers. There's a good chance he meant what he tried to do, I say that because when I'm playing fantasy football on a Wednesday night and I smash one in the top corner on the odd occasion that it happens, I'm not always necessarily aiming for that top corner. I just want to get it at the goal.
Yeah.
And, it was a fantastic goal. You can't take anything away from that. But I kind of come away from that game thinking, well, they were the only 3 things you did that game.
Yeah.
And people are probably going to be like, this guy's an idiot. Like, Mohamed Salah is just an unbelievable world-class player. And I just think he's rubbish. Sorry.
He obviously has something that, obviously football fans, but you get those people who are able to spot the runs they make. There must be something about the way.
It's almost like the perfect storm, this Liverpool team, isn't it? Because, I mean,
it is, yeah.
I think Klopp has got this group of players playing in such a way where a lot of them are overperforming, or they're performing at a level for Klopp that they wouldn't for another manager.
Possibly.
And, they've got that perfect storm of players playing the way Klopp wants them to play. And, all credit to him. I think, what he's done for Liverpool Football Club in the last couple of years has been absolutely phenomenal.
I mean, what he's done is he's put together a team which we've lacked for a very, very long time, an actual team. I think the last time that we came close was under Rafa Benitez in 2008, when he seemed to have a functioning team, but nothing like this. I mean, this is on another level. And
absolutely.
I mean, what was disconcerting was seeing Virgil van Dijk struggle.
Well, he had a couple of those games at the end of last season.
He did, yeah.
He?
And when you go back, we said there about having 2 players from the same team in defence.
And I wonder if there's an element of, of winning everything that he's won now with Liverpool. Whether there is a little bit of, what's next for him. Has he still got the motivation to perform at that highest level? I mean, possibly. Look, it's a couple of games out of, a stretch where Liverpool went unbeaten at home for a phenomenal amount of time, and where he's up there for Player of the Year, and there's people putting him in their all-time greatest Premier League 11. So you cannot. His performance levels are high, to say the least, and we've got to give him a bit of slack. And of course, he did get on the score sheet as well. So I mean, from a fantasy football perspective, he is going to pop up with some, isn't he?
He is, definitely, and I think he did that at the beginning of last season as well. I'm sure he scored in the first game. Right?
So back to a fantasy football perspective, I assume you're going to you're sticking with your main man Mo. He's
Yeah.
not going
Oh
to
God. Yeah.
be coming out of the team anytime
No.
soon.
No, he's
Well,
never going anywhere. And the
well,
thing
I am
is
not
that
finding any room for him for now.
you're sticking to
I've
your
got to
guns.
stick with my guns, and I may well fall on my sword, as it were. Here, I want to change as little as possible till things settle down a bit. And I mean, we've got a lot of time till the transfer window closes as well.
Yes. Yeah, we have. Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what happens in that time. I mean, I've got Brewster as one of my 4.5 million forwards, and I've got him in there because he's the best of a bad lot, to be honest with you. And I wanted to spread the money around somewhere else. And
I mean, there's a good chance
up,
he gets a move, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And if he ends up somewhere else, then he gets played. He's a handy player, I think.
He could be a massive differential of 4.5 million striker if he moves to a Sheffield United, for example, and gets some game time.
That's it. Yeah, and I think as long as the team he goes to suits his style of play. I mean, I was from a Liverpool point of view, I'd like to see him given a bit of a crack at in the team, but it's where he will fill in or who he will fill in for. It's going to be the issue. But that's why I got him in there, as you said, a differential. I didn't know that word was what was used for those type of players. I just thought he was.
This is here. We're educating every day, Rob.
It is, yeah. I didn't know about the kit a minute ago. So every day you learn something, don't you? But I captained Aubameyang, and it was for the reasons we talked about.
I think it was a good shout, and it was a. I mean,
it
was a safe shout, and also, I mean, what do you think? What do you make of the move to putting him as a midfielder? I mean.
He's not a midfielder, so I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean that was a big shock to people, that wasn't it?
I often wonder when they move the players around like that. There's a bigger picture. They're doing it for a reason. So they moved Lundstrom up to midfield.
Yeah,
and I think they've done that because they realised the way that he plays, he's going to get more of the chances and score the higher points.
I mean, ultimately he was playing in central midfield as well. There was a lot of people. I mean, I remember. Pre-season last year, speaking to another group of guys about Lundstrom, and he was one of these guys that had such a phenomenal pre-season in terms of his minutes played, the fact he was playing out of position as a midfielder and he was in the game as a defender, the fact that he was at such a low price, and I was like, get this guy in there and see how he gets on. And a lot of people hadn't heard much of him because he didn't play a huge amount in their championship promotion push. So I mean, everyone's looking for that Lord Lundstrom this year, aren't they? Everyone's looking for that.
Yeah, there's a couple knocking around that could be. I mean, Vinagre was like the go-to, wasn't he, at one point?
Yeah.
For defense.
As soon as they signed Marcel from Lyon, that was always at risk. I think there's talk of him possibly moving out of Wolves as well. So.
Yeah, he's gone from the go-to to all of a sudden he's on his way out. I mean, I put in this team Seiss in Wolverhampton.
Oh, God, you didn't pick Seiss as well, did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, my days.
But do you want to know the funny thing?
The yellow card king from last year as well.
The yellow card king got 15 on the last. He scored yesterday, didn't he? He scored last night.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about him, so I don't know huge amounts. I don't know huge amounts about the Wolves squad, and he was £5 million. I thought he's gonna end up in that side, and they're a fairly decent defence.
I mean, maybe when I said people shouldn't come to this podcast to get advice, maybe I should have said people shouldn't listen to me and they should just listen to you.
Well, the worst thing about it is that Seiss. So what I tend to do is I'll watch the games or listen to the games. It's becoming an obsession again, and you pick up on players that are doing quite well. So I've had my eye on Gabriel for a while when he signed, and I thought, I wonder what he's going to be like. An absolutely cracking game. So I thought Seiss is the weaker one out of all. I don't really know much about him. So before the game week had finished, I swapped them over. So I've got, and I shouldn't really tell you this because I got you next week, but I've got Gabriel in there as my centre back, and I've moved Seiss. But of course, Seiss had a cracking game yesterday. He scored. Right. Yeah. So I thought, I wonder what I've done. So Gabriel will probably have a stinker. But then again, you've got Brighton. Is it Brighton you've got next week?
No, we're playing West Ham at home.
Oh, West Ham. Oh, that'll be fine. Yeah, so, you'll be right. So they're not going to trouble him, are they? So
you wouldn't think so. I mean, you never know with West Ham. I mean, traditionally, West Ham has been a good team for us to play, but equally they have upsetters at home on the odd occasion. So you never know what happens with these teams in the face of adversity. I mean, that club is just in absolute disarray at the minute, and their fixtures coming up are horrific. I mean, their next few fixtures are Arsenal away, Wolves home, Leicester away, Tottenham away, Man City home, Liverpool away. I mean, that is in order. That's not with me leaving out anything in between, aside from your League Cup stuff. And that run could potentially see David Moyes out of a job by November. I mean, the way they played in that first game, the fact that you've got the club captain speaking out on Twitter, basically slagging off the owners over the sale of Gregory Diangana, they could easily come away with 0 points from their first 7 fixtures, the way things are going at the moment. I'm sure they won't. I'm sure they will pick up something somewhere. But that's almost would leave David Moyes' position as manager untenable, I think.
Yeah, they are the... I don't know how else to describe West Ham. They flat the start of every season, they just seem to go into meltdown, and then it's almost like they need a crisis.
And their recruitment's been terrible, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been awful. Yeah, absolutely terrible. And I've read a lot of stuff about Souček, and I had him in there right the way up to the last minute, and I swapped him for Harrison.
I had Souček in there as well, and I do feel like it's the kind of thing where if I took him out this week, he would end up scoring against Arsenal.
Yeah.
I almost feel like leaving him in my team and being vindicated, but not taking the damage against my own team. Than to swapping him out.
No, I agree with you. It's an awkward one. I mean, I've got the same issue as Son. So Son's in there now. He scored 2, but he's a quality player. So it's at some point he's going to pick up and.
He is, and they've got Spurs have got Southampton away next week, and that should be an interesting game because that's 2 teams coming off the back of disappointing results, looking to pick up points.
Yes, and you've got so I've got Dyer against Ings, which I tend to try and avoid if I can to have opposings, but it's not possible this week, and I'm going to keep Ings in because he just finds himself in the right place at the right time. He's another Salah, I think, in some respects, is that you don't expect him to come up with the goods, and he does. And I remember before he left Liverpool, there were some games he was playing and he was in the right positions. It was just his fitness and it was his injuries that kind of stopped it really going anywhere. And also slightly different style. I don't think he quite suited Klopp's style of play. But I
think he was unlucky last week. He was unlucky against Crystal Palace as well. He did get into some good positions, and obviously they couldn't quite find the back of the net. And I mean, there's not many teams that aren't going to score against Crystal Palace this season, I don't think, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, I mean, Gaeta, for the Palace goalie, ended up picking up some good points. I think he ended up, he was the highest scoring goalie with 10 points. I think he picked up 3 bonus points against them. So I guess that says it all, really, when your home keeper is picking up those 3 bonus points. I mean, what have you had a look at next week? I mean, there's a couple of attracting fixtures. The ones that jump out to me in terms of looking at making changes to the teams are Everton. They're playing West Brom at home, and they've started very well.
To me, that's another danger zone as Everton. I remember every time I've put an Everton player in.
Luca Dean, Rob. Talk me through Luca Dean.
God's sake! I mean,
didn't you pick him every time he had a red card, and that's just how it went?
Something like that. Yeah, it was about 2 years ago when I first started doing this, and he'd just signed from Barcelona, and he's obviously a quality player. Undervalued, I think. I think that they got him on a steal. So I put him in thinking that I was being clever, and then first of all, they didn't pick him. They kept picking Leighton Baines. And then when they did pick him, he got sent off. So I removed him from the team, and then all of a sudden he'll start putting in these wonderful, either a goal or an assist, and I just find him incredibly frustrating. The same goes for Pickford. I think I had him in for a very short period of time because he'd made some good saves. And I fall victim to that kind of trap of, well, they're doing quite well, I'll put them in. And
A lot of chat about
Sigurdsson had a horrendous season.
Yeah, I mean, is Sigurdsson going to get any game time? I mean,
I don't think so.
James Rodriguez came in and did very well on his debut.
He did, yeah, and he's another one. He's one of these kind of harpies of football, of fantasy football. He's kind of tempting you onto the rocks to pick him. And I think that just because he's a name, I'm going to stay away from him.
So what do you think? Just on the watch list for now?
He's on the watch. Yeah, I've started doing a watch list. So I don't know how to do the kit, but I know how to do the watch list. I've started adding players to the watch list to follow them on.
Nice.
And but I've got a couple of players who. So for instance, I've stayed away from Sheffield United because they had such a bad end to the last season. They looked rattled, I think, and they looked like as well that other clubs had worked out how to get at them. So I stayed away from Sheffield United completely. Defence, because they were the mainstay of my defence last year.
Yeah,
because they were just so cheap and they produced the points.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because again, I wonder whether their foot's gone off the gas a little bit now that they're almost an instant established Premier League side with how well they've done in that last season. And I do wonder whether, I mean, they had such a terrible start against Wolves that it's difficult to recover from that when you're 2 down in the first 10 minutes. So again, you know, it's one of those where you can't really judge from that game, but everything tells you that they should still be as solid at the back as before. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Ramsdale. I think they're missing out hugely from not having Henderson in goal. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see who lines up as number 1 in Man United. I can't believe I can't imagine it won't be David De Gea for the first game, but you know, we have to see what happens there. I mean, what about Ethan Ampadu? He has finally got a Premier League move, obviously at Sheffield United. Is he going to break into that Sheffield United team? Chris Wilder has obviously got a very set way about the way he likes to do things.
Yeah.
The kind of the talk, I mean, we both live in Wales, and you know, the talk from the guys that seem to know him from the Welsh camp, the people speak glowingly of this guy. And you know, we've got a mate, Andy, who's a big Chelsea fan as well. You know, there's nothing but good stuff that comes out of Ethan Ampadu. But you know, he didn't get a lot of time when he went over to Germany on the pitch last season. You know, is he going to get that time on the pitch now? I'm sure Wales fans would love to see that.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, he's another player I don't know huge amounts about. I know there was a bit of a stir when he signed for Sheffield United, and I know he'd been in Germany, but I don't know huge amounts. I don't know huge amounts about him.
Well, we'll have to see that one. Maybe another one just to see if he does start getting any game time, because he could be quite a cheap option there to bring in. I mean, so obviously we have the big boys from Manchester coming back. Manchester United are at home to Crystal Palace on Saturday.
Didn't Palace do well there last year? Didn't they give them a bit of
Palace can be a bit of a bogey team for United, can't they? But I mean,
difficult to break down.
Being a Liverpool fan, are you able to put that rivalry aside for one moment?
Yeah, I did it last year.
Are you tempted at bringing anybody in for game week 2?
No, definitely not. I think that's down that path and leads to disappointment. I mean, back end of last season, I thought Bruno Fernandes started to look tired. I thought that he started to run out of gas. Because
he's only taking penalties, isn't he? That's the only thing he's on the pitch for.
I never said that. But what I find it's the same story with a lot of players who come in from other leagues. The pace of the Premier League, even now, is so high. I think that he did half a season. I don't think he would have made a full season in his first season and been as effective. I think the fact he came in halfway through, again, I could be talking absolute shit, so or just repeating same kind of tropes that most people do. But in this instance, I just feel that towards the ends of the restart, again, I could be wrong. I just felt that he was running out a bit of steam. Whether he's had enough time off, because they were playing quite late, weren't they, in the Champions League and the Europa League? Sorry. So that carried on for quite a while.
It'll be an interesting one. I think you know, there's a lot of interesting options for United, especially, you know, Martial's been moved to a forward. You've got Mason Greenwood and you've got Rashford as a midfielder.
Yeah.
I think Greenwood could be potentially, if Man United, I mean, look, there's a lot to consider. Obviously, they've bought in Van der Beek as well from Ajax, so
Yeah, did
who
you look
knows
at
where
him?
he's going to
Did you have a
play.
look at Van der Beek?
I didn't, to be honest, because I thought, you know,
I don't know enough about him.
no, I mean, I thought he played more in the front line than the midfield line. So we're just going to have to wait to see how Man United line up, I think. You know, we've got Man City come in, and I mean, picking a Man City player at the best of times is a stressful thing. I mean, Pep Guardiola, the bane of all fantasy football managers, who knows? I mean, we have somebody in our TASL league who's written a very famous song about Pep Guardiola. I say famous; it's famous within our ranks. But
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the gist is Guardiola, he'll F you over kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, we all know how we feel about that. But
it's the Nathan Ake signing, which I thought was really
yes,
odd.
that's a big signing, isn't it? Big money.
It's an odd one because not that I know anything because I'm not a football manager, but I always thought it was odd to buy a defender who's had shipped a load of goals and got relegated the season before.
Yeah,
I just think it's an odd thing to do. Same with the goalkeepers. You don't buy a goalkeeper who's been relegated because it's just his confidence is shot to bits. He's picking the ball out of the net most seasons. So it's a weird one, and I've just got a feeling they're going to start with him for some reason.
They could. There's been a lot of talk of him potentially starting at left back, which, you know, having a more defensive, left-minded left back might not be the worst thing for those guys at the minute. But De Bruyne,
yeah, I mean,
is he, you know, somebody you're going to look to bring in soon? I'll make Kevin.
Yes, at some point. Yeah, it's just depending on who shows the dip in form out of the expensive ones I've got.
I mean, Wolves away, their first game on Monday night. That's not an easy first fixture.
No, it's not. It's not an easy first fixture, and it's the same as the reverse. So, in a way, I'm quite pleased I brought Sice out because potentially City could run riot.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, you know, I did remove Jimenez just before. He's another one that I toyed with for a while.
Yeah.
And I removed him and I put Ings in instead. And of course, Jimenez had a cracking first game. So I've got Werner in there, who is 9.5, and that's a lot of money. And I just had a feeling that he might kind of contribute, make it a goal, especially against Brighton as well.
Well, I have to say, did you watch the Chelsea Brighton game, Rob? I mean,
I listened to it. I
I mean, I watched the game last night, as it were, now, and I have to say, even though it was a 3-1 Chelsea win, Brighton did impress me more. But I mean, particularly Lamptey playing on the right, I thought he was excellent. And I mean, effectively, he was playing right midfield. Brighton playing a 3-4-3 that can obviously play as a five at the back when they're in defence, kind of thing. But Lamptey impressed me massively. I thought Trossard looked really good. And the thing I loved about the game was that on commentary, Kepa is such a bad keeper that at one point Martin Tyler questioned his eyesight. He said, I mean, he basically said, I wonder whether it's an eyesight problem. I mean, I know footballers wear contacts and stuff, but something's got to be wrong. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think we'll be seeing a new goalkeeper in Chelsea.
I think so. To me, when he argued with Sarri a couple of seasons ago, he should have been out the door. I think that's
the whole when he
wouldn't come off. Sub wouldn't come off. I've never seen anything like it. It was such a strange thing to happen. I've never seen anything like it. And I think if that had been any other manager at any other club, you wouldn't have seen him again. It would have been a long time before he emerged. But I think because Sarri was on rocky ground at that time anyway, and they'd spent so much money on this keeper who he's proven not to be up to the price tag at the moment.
I mean, he is a terrible goalkeeper. Finally, I can say he is a rubbish goalkeeper.
But he's only 20.
And the numbers back me up for a change. It's not like the Mo Salah thing. This guy looks rubbish, and the stats say he's rubbish as well.
He's only 23, isn't he? And I mean, his goalkeepers traditionally have been, you know, they've come into their prime a little bit later on in their late 20s, early 30s. So they must have seen something in him to have spent all that money on him and brought him in. But I just, Yeah, I think for me, Chelsea should have gotten rid as soon as he started disagreeing with what his manager, because it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the team as well.
I agree.
How would your forward line? Because you got Mitrovic in there now. He's as I said before, he's
I had
another
Mitrovic. I've got Vardy, and I've got Kane. I'm thinking I'm going to keep it for the next game week. I still need to have a little look, have a little think, because I mean I'm looking at it going, who would I bring in up front? Ollie Watkins for Villa interests me. They've spent big money on him. He's going to have a good relationship with the manager from his time at Brentford. They've spent such a price tag on him that he's going to play. Villa aren't in a position where they can, like Arsenal with Pepe, where we can probably afford to put him on the bench every now and again. They're going to have to play in, game out. So that could be an interesting one for me. But, I was tempted by Wilson as well. I didn't know if he was going to start his first game, and he got on the score sheet. But there we go. Let's see how it goes game week 2. I mean, I think we've chatted quite a lot about game week 1 there. Have you got any big predictions for game week 2?
No, I'm fairly unchanged. The only thing is Timo Werner's injured, so he's a doubt for
so
game
are
week
you
2.
I mean, look, we play ladies and gents, I guess at this stage I should say thank you for listening, if indeed you still are. Rob, you and I are facing each other, I believe, in the head-to-head TASL League next week. Are you willing to reveal your early thoughts for a captain choice?
It's going to be Aubameyang, because Salah's up against quite a it's half decent team, and I'm going safe again. But with Werner, I because I went so early on swapping out Saiss for Gabriel, and then Werner, as per every Chelsea player I've ever put in my team, has just kind of he's gotten himself injured and made it awkward.
Curse. I think maybe that's a discussion. That's a discussion for another episode. I think
that's game week 3. I think we'll discuss the Chelsea forward curse, which.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent. Let's not get into that now. I'm with you. I'm looking at Aubameyang. I think he's more than likely going to be my pick for captain for game week 2. So we will reconvene next week and see how that goes.
Definitely.
Coming towards the end now, we thought like what we could do is have a few punchy bits at the end. A little in other news section, which is very original and catchy title segment for a show.
Is this for special things that have happened in the world of football, Phil? Is there anything in particular that's
very special? I've got a list. I've got a list, and basically I'm going to fire these at you, Rob, and I need a 5-second reaction. Okay, are you ready? Right, the first one up was Paris Saint-Germain versus Marseille. The game finished 1-0 to Marseille. It was Paris's second defeat on the bounce since losing the Champions League finals. So they're 0 for 2. Obviously, they've been ravished with COVID issues.
Yeah.
But more significantly for this game is that I think PSG ended up having 4 players sent off, and Marseille ended up having a couple sent off as well.
Yeah.
Neymar walks off the pitch.
He got sent off,
calling somebody a big racist. I mean, did you see this?
I've got an intense dislike for Neymar, so anything that happens to him is a joy to me.
Fine, fair enough, excellent. Right, tick.
I'll stop before I go any further.
Tick, excellent. And so my second one is Hey Jude. I know you're a big fan of Jude Bellingham. He scored on his debut, becoming Borussia Dortmund's youngest ever scorer. Is it time to retire his shirt, Rob?
I was going to say they're going to retire his shirt, because that is ridiculous. How can a club retire a shirt for someone who's played like 10 games for them? That's
absolutely fantastic. Okay, the next one, we touched on this a little bit, but there's no fans at the football, Rob. How and when is this going to be resolved, and is it having a big impact on results?
I don't know. I think it had a bit of an impact on certain clubs at the end of last season, and I just think that given what's going on in the wider world, I'm quite happy to have the football back. But I know that it's going to have a massive financial impact on a lot of clubs, especially lower down.
It's painful for the fans, though, as well, isn't it? The season ticket holders and the people that do go week in, week out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because the players are being paid a huge amount of money. And the temptation is to say, oh, I'm going to cancel it because I'm not going to the games. But at the same time, you start cancelling your season tickets and not paying for them. And you look at the lower leagues, and some of those clubs I think are going to go to the wall. I think the next 6 to 9 months are going to be massively important for them. And I do feel sorry for a lot of fans, lower league sides, because they're basically done for.
They are. Well, let's hope that they're not. But I mean, I agree with everything with what you're saying, and let's hope that the clubs, particularly in the lower tiers of the league, do come out of that. Cool. Last one on a slightly happier note. Jamie Vardy, obviously, he recently, I believe, with his brace against, who were they playing now? I can't even remember. It's gone completely out of my head. It was, of course, West Brom. With his brace against West Brom, he has just surpassed Didier Drogba's Premier League goal tally in less games. So what I want to know, Rob, is who was the better striker, Vardy or Drogba?
I think it's the style of play you have. I think that Chelsea were quite brutal when Drogba was
Rob, you can't sit on the fence with this one. You can't sit on the fence. Are we looking? If you can only pick, you can pick prime Drogba or prime Vardy. Because let's be honest, Firmino is dross at the minute, so you can sub him out. Who you put in? Okay. Who you put in up front?
I would have to pick Vardy because of his pace. There we
are.
And also because Drogba's a Chelsea player, so I can't possibly pick him.
I mean, look, to say we're anti-Chelsea would, to be quite honest with you, be perfectly correct.
But I've got a Chelsea player in my team, you know.
But no, I'm with you. I think Vardy is a Premier League legend, and he, for me, would get the nod. So I think that is it, Rob. I think we're there. I think actually, I'll tell you what. For our first effort, I think we've done all right. Obviously, you know.
I'm sure people will be quick to tell us if we haven't.
Especially our nearest and dearest. Yeah. So I mean, look,
if you can't rely on your friends to tell you, you're a pile of nonsense.
Rubbish,
then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So look, mate, thanks for joining me today. Hopefully, same time, same place next week.
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, thanks if you have been listening to us. And, you know, if you do want to help us out and you do want to hear a little bit more of this, then please feel free to share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with anybody that might be interested in a couple of middle-aged blokes having a chat about fantasy football and things going on in the world of football. That would do us a massive favour, and we would greatly
Please don't share with Mo Salah, because I don't think he'll appreciate it.
Yeah, well, he'd appreciate you, Rob, probably not me so much. This has been the TASL Fantasy Football Chat Pilot, the Mo Salah Complex. We hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.